Hey, welcome to iFanboy, the video podcast from the comic book discussion site ifanboy.com. I am Josh, and this is Connor.
Hello.
And
we're here with DARWYN COOKE.
Hey, good morning, everybody.
In lovely rainy San Francisco.
Windy
and rainy, and in the
low 50s.
No, the room.
Oh, we are. Well, it's very early, and we're all kind of beat. I was remarking, you're a fantastic designer and artist, and we put you in the ugliest room on the face of the earth.
Yeah, I was saying this carpet reminds me of that scene in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. and right this morning is right about the right time for this carpet to start crawling away on us.
So, I thought it was interesting that when you started out wanting to get into comics, but your style wasn't what people wanted, so you went into animation, which sort of helped propel your style to become acceptable, the popularity of the animation. Sort of a circuitous route to get into comics.
Everything for me has been that way. To be quite honest, it's been really weird. I have a lot of young talent will come up to me at the shows, and they want to know what my formula was for breaking in. And I said, gee, I don't know, tie your work to a stone and throw it off the roof of a building and see what happens. Because I had pitched Ego, I guess, in '94. Batman Ego was my first graphic novel for DC Comics. And while they kind of appreciated the work, it was right in the middle of the image boom.
Right, which is as far from your style as you can get.
So there were guys who appreciated the work, but nobody was buying. And 4 years went by. And in that 4 years time that passed, I had managed to hook up with the guys in Warner Brothers. And I'd done a sample for Bruce.
Bruce Timm.
Yes, Bruce Timm over at Warner's Animation. And he loved the sample, so they hired me. And I was like, well, forget about DC Comics, man. I'm at Warner's now working on the greatest Batman interpretation I think there's ever been.
Yep.
And I guess it was my second year in at Warner's. I get a phone call one day, and they're like, hey, yeah, I found this submission of yours. I was throwing out a bunch of stuff, and I found this thing. Do you still want to do this book? And they didn't know I was working at Warner's.
Oh, they didn't?
Oh, wow.
No, it was like, and that's the funniest part, is none of this was connected in any way. And so all of a sudden, 4 years later, okay, I'm doing the book, and we were kind of off and running. So I have no formula for success. It's just the most random thing.
Well, and speaking of success, New Frontier, especially I think '06 was really, with the Absolute Edition, really people really started to embrace it.
Thanks.
When you're making New Frontier or writing it, do you have any inkling at all that this is going to be this huge success?
Absolutely not.
And were you completely floored by that?
Yeah, it actually, I'll tell you, last night at James Symes' store sort of culminated in my stupefaction over the whole thing. I think we've all been blindsided by the degree to which the book seems to have,
We should quickly explain to the viewers that the reason why we're all a little groggy was last night was the premiere of the animated adaptation of the New Frontier, and then there was an after party at a place in San Francisco, so that's why we're a little.
There was a crazy party last night at the Isotope Lounge.
And it was so packed full of people.
That's I was saying as we were coming down, I had talked Bruce Timm into coming to the party, and we pulled up and we saw the crowd, and like neither one of us can really deal with that kind of thing. It's like, oh my God! And when we walked in, we just went, oh no. It thinned out just enough, though, within an hour it was fantastic. But at first we were like, oh, my God, look at all these people. So
like even after having the animated film produced and made and everything, it was just seeing all the people that...
You never really, again, you put your best foot forward. But up until the movie premiered, it's just a bunch of guys who were involved in it, glad-handing each other about the job, Mm-hmm. So until you've seen the reaction of actual humans.
Well, to talk about the book specifically, I think the thing for me and iFanboy and a lot of the people who watch the show is that your interpretations of the characters seem to have been sort of the best that anybody's done with, for example, Hal Jordan in a really long time. Yeah. I mean, were you feeling, was that something you were trying to fill in, like I can do the great Hal Jordan or the great...
I will admit I sort of had this feeling that I was going to avenge him with this story because of all the incredibly convoluted and sort of horrible things that had been propagated in the last, say, 10 years, since Emerald Dawn on, I suppose. And yeah, I always looked at him as a classic example of, lazy writing. Just guys stopped caring about him as a character, and they stopped trying to make it interesting. And then inertia keeps it going for 10 years. And then one day nobody cares about this character, so it's like, let's turn him into a murderer. Let's make him a drunk. And he becomes a plot device. And I thought that was sort of a horrible way to wrap it up with him. The only problem was I couldn't do a story like that took place today. Because of all the continuity. I had to go all the way back to the beginning to find a clean stretch of road with those characters where, I wouldn't have to deal with all of that kind of stuff.
If someone didn't know what New Frontier is, how would you explain it to a new reader?
Well, the one sentence pitch line is, it's the right stuff for superheroes, basically.
I think we mentioned that way back, yeah. Do you think that people really responded to the work because there's something missing in the current modern style of comics? There's something pure about the Silver Age, dawn of the Silver Age era?
I don't know if it's missing, but my opinion is it is. I mean, I'll be straight up honest, and again, I have a lot of respect for what my contemporaries do. But I'm sorry, there is absolutely no reason in the world there should be anything but an all-ages Superman story. There should be no other type, period. And if you haven't got the imagination or the skill to craft a good story within that framework, then you shouldn't be working on the character. I don't think these characters were built to carry these adult themes. And while they can, this whole notion, and I hate to bring it down to like marketing terms, but you have a brand, and your brand has a certain value and a certain equity and a certain access to a market. And the minute you start tampering with the brand, you're destroying its the goodwill it's built up over 60, 70 years. And one day, you can't go back. And all of a sudden, the irony is going to be that all of these characters that were created to entertain and inform younger people are going to be hands off to younger people.
And they're not accessible anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now you're putting out another New Frontier piece. A one-shot's coming out.
That's right.
What was the inspiration to come back to that? Was it at all daunting considering the success of the first, the original?
Yeah, we discussed it many different ways, and it's daunting in the sense that, gosh, I could do New Frontier stories for 30 years, to be quite honest. But
Will you?
No. No. As Jon Stewart says, I'm not your monkey. No, the problem is you can get really worried when you've done something right that you could screw it up by going in to tamper with it, I call it Muhammad Ali syndrome, like just not knowing when to stop, or Sylvester Stallone syndrome. Honestly, Rocky's one of the most famous, brilliant movies ever made, and then you just beat the hell out of the brand with all the junk.
It dilutes the power of the original.
Absolutely. And so
Rocky 2 was okay.
Hey, almost every one of the movies has some sort of merit to it, but ultimately what happens is it makes the brand, or the movie, the piece of work that actually started it all, is its values diluted by.
You don't think of Rocky as being the Oscar-winning film. You think of the ridiculousness of the sequels.
You see Dolph Lundgren and Mr. T and all that nonsense. You don't think about what a powerful, wonderful film it was. So I'm very worried about the notion of going back into it in a big way. But it's a lot of fun to dip in with a couple little stories.
Did you have a favorite character that you had in New Frontiers, interpretation, maybe the way you drew them or the storyline you came up for them? Was there a favorite piece in there that?
There's quite a few, actually, but one of the ones that I still love to see the reaction to is, of course, Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
And certainly, if there has been difficulty with New Frontier from the get-go in terms of a visual sense, it was their inability to sort of, appreciate, I'll say, my interpretation of Wonder Woman. And as usual, the readership speaks, right? And they love her.
Yeah.
You've got this little percentage of guys who go, why is she so big? But generally, people just love the take on
She's
the
powerful.
character. So it's been a lot of fun for me to watch DC and Warner's have to embrace that take on the character because she's such an important part of the story itself. So I'd say, yeah, she's definitely the one.
Now, in taking the book to the animated realm, did they present that idea to you? Did it something you were involved in from the beginning?
Well, no, these things happen, right?
Right.
This is a large company, and they make these decisions completely independently of us. However, the minute they knew they were going forward, they called me. Greg Novak at DC called me up, and they wanted me involved from the very beginning. And I didn't want to be, actually.
Really?
Well, animation, it literally takes maybe, 1,000, 1,500 people to come together in a unified fashion to execute something like this. And
then they're all involved in your work now.
I just didn't see it happening. I didn't see it coming together the way I would have been happy with it. And if there's one thing I've learned about New Frontier, it doesn't matter what it is about it. I'm associated with it. My name's kind of on the brand, and I have the choice of either staying completely away from something like that, so I can say, hey, that has nothing to do with my
Darwyn.
Exactly. Well, maybe not that vehement about it, but not like they should all, just, no, they're doing their thing, and it'll be their interpretation, and that'll be great. But once the team started coming together, that was the thing that really did.
It's Bruce Timm.
Yeah, Bruce, I've worked with Bruce before, and once I knew it went into his studio, and then I saw the guys who were being brought in on the project, like David Bullock, the director. He's one of my best friends. And we've all worked together. We speak the same language. There's no getting to know each other. We understand that we all agree on the rules of good animation. There's no argument in regards to all these things. Then it became really attractive to me to want to be involved because I knew I was dealing with guys who get it. And once Dave and I piled in with Bruce, then every guy in the city kind of said, man, let me in on this thing. So we had this incredible crew, a bunch of guys who've moved on from this type of thing, came back to work on the movie. It was really, really,
It sounds rewarding. The experience seems like everyone's really happy with it.
It's tough, like Bruce and I are both fighters, we're both stubborn people. We both really believe in our approach to things. So there'd be issues where we'd butt heads. But that's part of the process, So there's a lot of push and pull as you go. But yeah, very rewarding. And actually, just a kick to be working with old friends that I hadn't worked with in, over 8 years now.
So are you happy with the final product? I mean, is it...
Yeah, that's a two-part question.
Are you mostly happy with the final product?
I'm not happy with anything.
Well, that's good. I mean, most artists will tell you you're never fully happy with your work.
Part of the process is, the day you're looking at your own work going, gee whiz, isn't that wonderful?
Yeah.
You're probably done. So for me, everything is a process of, that could have been better. And you're constantly examining the work for its weaknesses, trying to figure out the ways, next time you can make it stronger. So on that level, all I see are flaws.
Right.
But that's Bruce, myself, David, the director. That's what we're trained to do. Mm-hmm. As a viewer, to sit down and watch it, absolutely, it's a home run. Right.
Was there anything in the movie that you adapted that there was something in the book that you thought you could have done better that you changed in the movie, or is it straight?
I believe there are a lot of little pieces of the film that sort of handle certain aspects of the book in a really, say, more succinct and compressed dramatic fashion that I thought was really kind of good. Mm-hmm. I thought the way Stan constructed the first scene with Martian Manhunter was really well done. It sort of said everything about the character all in one little vignette. Well, I don't necessarily think it's kind of apples and oranges, which is better. I got a real kick out of them putting Hal on the rocket in the movie for the scene with Flag. And the minute I saw how exciting and dramatic that was going to be, I thought, wow, that's a brilliant move. Now, I don't know that I would have changed my book back, but it definitely makes for a more exciting end to the second act of the film.
Well, it's a phenomenon that we haven't seen in a while in comics. And the New Frontier, I don't know if I've met anyone yet who we've exposed to the book and has not really loved it. So I think it's something to be very proud of.
I think there's people who hate it, but they're at a point now where they won't say that anymore. You know, they keep it themselves, but they're going, God, I hate that book. What's the big deal?
Now, if we can switch gears a little to The Spirit, which was your other big project and which we also all loved, what brought you to The Spirit? I mean,
because that's a daunting thing to have to
The
tackle.
big black car drove me out to Wildwood Cemetery, and I was held in front of this big hole in the ground. They put a gun to my head. The Spirit came right out of the blue, and I got a call from Mark Chiarello at DC, and they were going forward with this book. And again, none of these projects are contingent on creative involvement. Once they're going ahead, and they're going with or without you.
Right.
And that's how, you know, like even Batman Beyond, that's how it ended up existing. They were doing it whether we liked it or not. So it was up to Bruce to come up with a good idea for it, or it was going to happen anyway. So they were doing the book, and they wanted me to do it. And at first I said I didn't think so, because, you know, come on, what do you...
It's stepping in the footsteps of giants.
The way I say it, it's like, yeah, you know, okay, some idiots might think that you've got to remake Psycho shot for shot, but I'm not one of them. That just, you know, it's ridiculous. But after a couple days of thinking about it, it occurred to me, as long as it was placed in the present day, that gave me 50 years of social trends and things that have come about that Will didn't have to work with. And frankly, trying to do The Spirit in the period, like consistently, forget it.
Right.
There's so many stories. You name it. Any type of story done any type of way, they did it. So in order for it to be a fresh challenge and not just a rehash, I thought, geez, if we're in the present world, there's a whole new set of circumstances we could put them in. That would work for me. And then, you know, when I phoned them and said, can we do this with it, they were happy to do it that way. And then I got excited about it, because I wouldn't just be echoing or mimicking his work as much as I could sort of add to it with some of the things that have happened in the last, you know, little while.
As well as expose a lot of people who haven't ever read The Spirit and say you should now go check out, you know, the original.
This has a lot to do with why we stuck to Dunn & Ones.
Yep.
And we tried to hit a variety of tones as we went. Was we wanted new readers. You know, I'll be honest, I considered the old readers a captive audience to one degree or another. They were going to pick it up. If they liked what I did, great. And if they didn't, they were going to not pick it up. So to me, the issue was always new readers. And that's why we ended up with, one-issue stories, things you can pick up and put down with a sense of completion. You know, we built a bit of continuity over the year with the world, but we wanted to make sure it was accessible and easy for everybody to sort of jump onto.
The Spirit seems very unique in the traditional noir leading male character, at least amongst the modern heroes. How would you describe Denny Colt to people? Like his attitude towards what he does?
Oh, okay. He's not stronger. He's just willing to hang on longer. You know, he's not smarter. He's just willing to put more time into it. Denny's just, he's an average guy, I believe. He's not the brightest guy in the world. He's not the dumbest. He's an average guy. And he has a thirst for adventure. I think something that isn't really touched on anywhere is kind of like the perverse nature of Denny Colt. And I don't mean that in any salacious way, but here's a guy who at the age of 25, after being killed, comes back to life. And he comes up with this idea of, oh man, wouldn't it be great if I didn't have to pay taxes? I could just chase these guys and not worry about the rules. And, you know, he was an adventurer. I think he was a guy who was up for anything, you know, and whatever came his way, he was like, okay, I'm down with that. Let's try that, or let's go with that. And I think that's what I loved about him, is he's not a genius. He doesn't have any superpowers. And quite often his thirst for adventure, you know, gets him in over his head.
Did you have a favorite issue that you from the run?
It's so difficult to choose because they were tonally so different.
Right.
So it is a tough question. I think if I had to choose, it's probably between, and this is just for me personally, number 4, Pork and Beans.
Okay.
Oh, no, that was number 5, excuse me. Spirit Pork and Beans with Carrion. Or number 10, the Rush Limbaugh as the Rosie O'Donnell, you know, schizophrenic killer thing.
Let me I guess sort of technically, when I'm a reader and I'm looking at the pages, the title page, are those something that do those take a long time of planning, or you know, you go over them again and again? Are those difficult, or they come kind of easy?
It you know, it really varied issue to issue. Some of them were there in my head the minute I knew what the story would be. Sometimes that image would drive the notion of where I was going with the story. The Silk Satin story, for example, in issue 4 was built backwards from the notion of them being handcuffed in the desert. And that splash image and that whole first page lead-in was really what I had for the characters, was that somebody's bitching about the person they're dragging along, and you assume it's Denny bitching about this woman, and then you turn the page and you find out it's actually the woman bitching about Denny. And that splash was in my head when I thought of the moment. And then there were ones where, yeah, it took forever to construct them because I knew what it had to say, but I couldn't figure out how. So it all depended.
So you're a writer-artist working on a monthly book. How long does it take you to do 30 pages? Or 20, however many pages, 22 pages.
22 now pages, that we do. And, yeah, we had to do it every month. You know, and look, kids, don't let anybody tell you different, okay? The reason these things don't get done in time is because they don't work on them. It's not because it's impossible. It's not because the guy's putting so much into it that it just can't be done, okay? They're just not working at speed, all right? And I'm sorry, guys, but that's the truth, admit it.
So does the work ethic come from being in animation, from not going right into comics, the ethic to get it done every month?
No, it goes way further. It goes way back. It goes back to like caddying on golf courses when I was 13 to get money for comics, and all the way through. One thing about comics is it's become less of an industry and more of a cottage industry, I will say, which is to say all the people involved in the direct market love it, know it for what it is, and make allowances for things like lateness or, you know, et cetera. In the real world, come on. You work at Time Magazine and you go into the publisher and you go, hey, man, you know, we're just not going to ship tomorrow. I'm going to be 2 days late.
You're fired.
On the street, buddy.
Yeah.
There's no talk. There's no discussion. You're gone. That's what monthly publishing is. You're there every month, come hell or high water. And we blew it. The problem was it got insane during the New Frontier movie.
Right.
Because I was working full-time on both projects.
Oh.
So there was a 4-month period where I was writing and drawing the monthly Spirit, including doing the covers and coloring the covers and the whole nine, and working on the movie.
So how long were your days then?
16 hours to 20 hours, depending. And like 7 days a week, it rolled like that there were at least 2 months where it rolled like that. And I started getting these blinding headaches.
Yeah.
And it was just crazy. And then I finally found out I needed glasses. I finally broke my eyes. So
It's a painful way to find out.
So yeah, you know, it was a lot of work last year, and yeah, we did. We screwed up. There was 1 month where we blew it, and you know, it's funny because what can throw you off, you never know what it will be. And in issue 10, we had the momentum to make it all the way to the year at that point, and the movie had just closed out, so I was exhausted, but I could see the light. And then with number 10, the legal department came in and made all kinds of idiotic notes on the book, and they were idiotic. Admit it, guys. Honestly. And I refused to change it because it wasn't being changed for any real legal reason I could see. It was just they were augmenting what I had done to their taste, so I wouldn't do it. And that led to the editor rewriting parts of 10. And that took the wind out of all of our sails at that point. And we actually lost 2 weeks there as we tried to recover from the fact that this was happening. And there'd been so much work, that I ended up blowing 2 weeks. And the next thing you know, we were a month late on the last book, right? So I felt bad about that because I wanted it to be a full year every time right out. But we did our best. We got to 12, and then it kind of...
So do you have something do you have books in the works? Do you have your plans or in place for your next works?
Or are you just going to take the next couple of years off and recuperate?
Oh, gosh. I don't think I could. I really do enjoy it. And it's funny because when I do have downtime, then I'm working on my house. Yeah. I find I have to burn my creative energy every day one way or another. But it would be nice to just do that on the beach with my finger for a month or so. But no, I'm actually taking a fair chunk of time off right now. I'm just going to go to some shows and enjoy, all of this that's going on. And then next year, the only firm thing on my schedule right now is I'm doing a Jonah Hex with my buddies Jimmy and Justin.
Man. That's one of our favorite books.
See, Jimmy and Justin are very good friends of mine, and they were after me since Jonah's kicked up, and I've just been too busy. And then in San Diego this year, Justin and I were out drinking one night. He's like, Hex, how do I get you into Hex? I said, what, are you stupid? I'm Canadian. Give me a story where he goes to Canada. I'm going to go across that New York State border into Canada. I said, maybe give me some Mounties, but not those guys in the red coats that you all think run around our woods.
Oh, they don't?
Give me those Vino whiskey-soaked, douchebags that were out there in the woods. Let's really do it. Let's show people the other side of all of that. And I said, and don't give me any nonsense. Make sure you research it. And going on and on. I'm just piling it on, thinking this will keep them off my back for a few months. And then, they turned around and wrote this brilliant script that incorporated everything I'd asked for. So it was like, okay, I guess we're doing Jonah Hex.
So is that in 08 or 09?
I should be out in June.
Oh, wow.
Are you interested going forward in doing other kinds of genres? Because one of the things that's great about Jonah Hex is that in the midst of all the superhero books and all this stuff, it's so good to see just a classic Western book. And, there's all sorts of other books that can be done.
There is absolutely it's no mistake that you'll notice most of my work revolves around Batman, Catwoman, Slam Bradley, the Spirit.
No superheroes.
They're all people. And even New Frontier, you'll notice that the periods where you see the metas go have been compressed into as tight a space as I possibly could because I just have way more interest in what I'll call human heroism. To me, Superman's always been a cheat. I never warmed up to the character because, sure, you're a hero. Look at you. It's easy to be a hero when you can't be hurt. And I've never really appreciated the immense burden that Superman carries around. I look at all these normal characters and I think, wow, there's a far more heroic journey they're on because they're mortal. They can be hurt.
Well, the Green Lantern ring is pretty powerful, though.
Yes, it is. And again, you will notice that in Frontier, we wait all the way to the bloody end before I let that become an issue in Hal's life. Because, at that point, things do take off in another direction. And I was far more interested in him as a person than I was in how many ways I could make Green Light look cool, grabbing things and stuff.
I just wanted to end by asking, what is it about comics that are so satisfying? Because you could work in other mediums. Why comics? What is it about comics?
I think what's great about comics is you have the ability to put together an actual finished piece of entertainment with the fewest number of people touching it. So it can be as close to what you feel is right as possible. Animation can be very rewarding, But unless you're Bruce Timm,
Yeah.
it's an anonymous
Right.
effort. You're very well paid, and you have all the respect of your peers, but your work goes unnoticed. And at some point, you know, every artist wants to be able to claim ownership of his work and be known for it. So comics afford you that opportunity. And while the direct market maybe isn't growing by leaps and bounds every month, the people who read them are spread out all over the media now. Last week, the Wall Street Journal called me
Wow.
to do an interview about New Frontier. And I said, well, why? And the writer said, you know, dude, I think my editor's a fan. I think he wanted to get this into the paper because he loves it. And yeah, it was in yesterday's picks section of the Wall Street Journal.
That's great.
Buy it all, buy them.
This must be, it must be a bit of a whirlwind, this whole New Frontier explosion in the last...
It's actually not been a whirlwind. It's more like a slow motion sort of thing, because it has now, for me, it's getting on 9 years that I've been living with New Frontier. So I'm seeing it unspool. And this last bit's been a hell of a whirlwind.
Yeah.
Like yesterday, I mean, I stood up in
the crowd was shocking. Yeah.
And I looked around, and you know, it begins to sink in. Holy geez, people do care. And you know, you have guys like Phil Morris coming up to you and going, "You're Darwyn Cooke." You just think, wow, I guess, yeah, this is something else. And then the party last night just finished it. You know, it was like, wow. So yeah, that kind of did catch me by surprise.
Well, you certainly deserve all the accolades you've received. It's a fantastic piece of comics, and
I'm starting to feel guilty about that now. You know, I'm starting to think of all the guys who created the characters, and it's like I'm thinking I got to start shifting all the fucking credit over to them soon because I'm starting to feel guilty.
We'll give Dave Stewart. Was it J-Bone? Did he dink that? He did the Spirit. Your inker was
Jay and Dave and Jared Fletcher. We've
Right.
been a team now for 5 solid years, I guess.
Yeah.
And yeah, geez, I mean, those guys, they're half of it, right? Like, I think I was the first guy to get my colorist on the cover with me as my primary collaborator, like on New Frontier. And
I think even in the Spirit, especially, like his colors added a lot to the book as well. I mean, we talked. I think it was the 4th issue, the Desert issue. I mean, I've never seen coloring like that.
David is half the equation when we're sitting there putting the artwork together. It's like in a film, sound is half of it, you know, and nobody wants to admit that because all the effort goes into shooting the visuals. But so yeah, my line art is my line art, but look at what Dave does with it, you know. It's he's definitely this whole notion of colorist. He's an artist in his own right, and you know everything he's brought to this work, it's as much his as mine.
Great. I think we need to all go take a nap and have some vitamin C and get you out of this horrid room now. So
God bless you, fanboys.
thanks a lot, and we'll be looking out for whatever comes next.
Thanks very much, guys. It was great coming down to talk to you.
I appreciate it.
I wish it was a little later in the day, but
Pow.
They're DARWYN COOKE toys from the New Frontier.
Pow pow, biff pow.
You just said Biff Pow.
Bam.
So we want to thank DARWYN COOKE for taking the time to sit
Absolutely.
with us.
That's a lot of fun.
It was. If you have any questions, you can write to contact@ifanboy.com.
Or if you want to leave us a voicemail, you can call 1-888-FANBOYS, which is 326-2697.
And you can get over to the iFanboy site at ifanboy.com where you can have a discussion about this show, or there's all sorts of other content and stuff going on. And then you can get over to revision3.com/ifanboy for more videos and links to the forums there. So thanks very much.